welcome to this week's edition of ELCAT News. I'm your host, Jen Carlos. At Monday's school committee meeting, Superintendent Gordon Smith and Director of Curriculum, Heather Brown, presented an overview of the state's new accountability framework by which the Commonwealth measures school district performance.
The accountability system is really looking at a number of things that it always has looked at. This is not something new in terms of having an accountability system. We've really, since MCAS has been in place, we've had some type of accountability system throughout the state. And as different laws, No Child Left Behind, Every Student Succeeds Act is the newest version at the federal level, tweaks or full-blown new accountability systems come into play. A couple new items. They've always looked at your graduation rate, but now they're looking at high school completion and actually allowing for, as you'll see as we go through the slides, for that fifth year, for systems to gain some points for keeping students engaged, and instead of seeing their dropout rise, their dropout percentage rise, keeping people engaged and earning their diploma. I think this accountability system is starting to really mesh with our goals. It's about understanding where your students are, where they've been, and how to work within that context to engage them in the best way possible. And interestingly enough, as we go through this, you'll see it's not necessarily the groups that have been reported in years past that you think would be there. And so this is where it becomes a little bit more of an even playing field, if you will, for suburban districts and urban districts, because they're trying to focus back and look at how are your students doing in your district. You know, maybe it's not the instructional practices that we're using. Maybe we don't know enough about our students whom we need to engage well, and so learning more about them may help us put better instructional practices in place.
Moving one step closer to finalizing the tax rate for fiscal year 19, the Town Council held a public hearing to determine if the town would continue to maintain a single tax rate for all classes of property. Director of Assessing Diane Bishop and Chairman of the Board of Assessors Martin Gregin presented information to the Council, including what the rate would likely be if the single tax rate were adopted.
That if we had a factor of 1 for residential and a factor of 1 for CIP, which is also known as commercial, industrial, and personal property, the tax rate is projected to be $20.55.
Diane will get into the more of the technical aspects of the classification hearing. I'm just going to talk about our values a little bit for the public and you guys, because we have more of an increase that we've had since 07 and 08. 73% of single-family homes went up between 3 and 6%.
You're going to find that we left, or you left, a good amount, close to 2.4 million of excess levy capacity that we could have spent but did not spend, as we were trying to be very conservative in the budget.
My name is Charlie Christensen, 19 Baymore Drive. I own a couple businesses in town. I'm vice chair of the East of the River Five-Town Chamber. I'm here to thank you guys for your past support of a single rate tax. It's very important to the businesses that we represent that we maintain that. You know, the businesses bring a lot to town. They support a lot of the community events. Try not to draw too many services. And we're hopeful that you'll continue to do so with your vote tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve that the town of East Long Meadow adopt for the fiscal year 2019 tax rate a factor of 1, a single tax rate with no residential or small commercial exemptions.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving a single tax rate factor of 1, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for the report.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
In a video produced last month for a civics activity at the high school, Bishop explains the steps to arriving at the tax rate.
First, the Board of Assessors is responsible in establishing values for all real and personal property accounts within the town. The Town Council must review and vote the amount of money needed to run the town. Once the values are established and the town budget has been voted, the finance team and the Board of Assessors must compile and submit a document called a tax recapitulation, also known as the tax recap. This is submitted to the Department of Revenue, Bureau of Local Accounts, for tax rate approval. The tax rate is determined by taking the total dollars needed to operate the town and divided by the total taxable valuation of the town. This will give you the tax factor. Once the tax rate is approved, each property owner's valuation is multiplied by the tax factor. The 2018 fiscal year tax rate was $20.94 per thousand.
Last Thursday, ELCAT and the Council on Aging hosted a candidates forum at the Pleasant View Senior Center for the 2nd Hampden District seat in the state legislature. Incumbent Representative Brian Ash faces challenger Allison Werder in that race.
Even thank you, Carolyn, butchering my name, but I forgive you. I do appreciate the fact that you put this together because it is important for people to know who the competition is, what the race is all about, and what you're voting for.
I am Allison Werder. I'm running for State Representative of the 2nd Hampden District. A little bit about myself. I am a Longmeadow resident. I have been there about 5 years, and I have 2 young children in the school system, in grade school and middle school in Longmeadow, and my husband as well. I moved up here originally for a job. I became the president of Mass Live. So I like to say I moved here for a job. I stayed here because we love it here as a family.
The forum was moderated by television news anchor Beth Ward, with most of the questions coming from audience members in attendance.
Question, if you could at first raise your hand and be identified, and just for the purposes of ELCAT, I will then repeat your question so we can get it into the microphone here. Do we have any questions from the floor? Yes, sir. So the question is, with respect to Governor Baker, what is one thing that you agree with the governor on? What is one thing you do not agree with the governor on? And I believe Representative Ash, you went first last time, so I was wondering if you would like to tackle that one first.
I've worked with the governor both in my previous role at Mass Live as the president, and then I've sat with him during this race and talked to him, and we are aligned on many things. And particularly what I agree with the governor on is working bipartisan to get things done. You know, trying to keep the noise of politics and the divisiveness out of the decision making.
For agreeing with the governor, I agree with working in a bipartisan way. I think that is one thing we can commend the governor on, working with the House and the legislation. We do have a healthy relationship. That's why we've been able to get things accomplished. I also agree with the governor on the opioid crisis, as we talked about a few minutes ago. The commitment we need as a Commonwealth, as Western Mass, the entire state, what we need to do, put forth to make sure we have the resources necessary to battle the opioid crisis.
Let's see, what I disagree with him on I find harder. I would say I disagree with his response last night on the deal issue. If you could say who you're going to vote for, is probably a good idea.
I heard something about that.
Yeah, if you endorse someone, you probably should say you're going to vote for them. So I guess I would say I disagree with that, and I think he misspoke, and that's tough, and hopefully I won't be waking up tomorrow thinking that I misspoke tonight. So.
What I disagree with him on would be the East-West Rail. I think the East-West Rail is imperative, is something that we need out here 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. But it's something, if we're going to compete, if we're going to be the crucial part of Western Mass, if we're going to compete with Eastern Mass, we need that.
You can watch the full program on ELCAT following this newscast. The candidates also sat down at ELCAT for one-on-one interviews with ELHS senior and longtime ELCAT student volunteer Jake Brady.
Given the recent controversies surrounding the Supreme Court, what are your thoughts on the movement to impose term limits for those serving on the highest court of the land?
Yeah, that's really interesting. You know, my father is an elected judge, and I know there's schools of thoughts on, you know, elected versus appointed judges. It's a really interesting debate, and I've heard it way too many times around my dinner table growing up, because Massachusetts has appointed, you know, Pennsylvania has elected. You know, I think I'm not prepared to change the way our Supreme Court, you know, has been chosen for centuries, decades, because of the Kavanaugh. I mean, I do think it was politics at its worst. I think it was handled very badly on both sides, and it may be broken. I think there's more discussion and more investigation that's needed before we really do something as drastic and potentially against our Constitution as not making Supreme Court justices lifetime.
So speaking on the distinction between the East and the West, comparatively speaking, how would you view states' issues, our state's issues versus district issues in terms of relevance?
For me, myself?
Yes.
Well, I mean, my main focus first and foremost is my district. I mean, I live here, my family lives here, my kids, live here. So everything I do, and these are the people, the 40,000 plus people that I represent are in the Second Hampton district. So my first and foremost are issues that have an impact on Longmeadow, East Longmeadow, Hampton, and Munson. That being said, there are also state issues that impact. The marijuana issue is one. The nurses issue would be one, because we all have loved ones who may or may not go in and out of hospitals. At some point or another, everybody uses Bay State or Mercy or one of the local hospitals. So I always look home first and then kind of like outwards from there as an importance.
Those interviews will be broadcast on ELCAT each day until the election and are available anytime at our YouTube channel, ELCAT 01028. Early voting has opened and will be available at the library community room. Town Clerk Tom Florence says 720 residents have taken advantage of the convenience as of Thursday afternoon, and he expects between 1,700 and 2,000 residents to have voted early by November 2nd, the day early voting ends. A reminder that the election day is Tuesday, November 6th at Birchland Park Middle School. Polls are open that day from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. Ballots cast in early voting are held in the vault until Election Day, when they are entered into the voting machines by registered poll workers. On October 22nd, officials representing Belchertown, East Longmeadow, Granby, Hamden, Longmeadow, Ludlow, and Wilbraham join a municipal roundtable hosted by Senator Eric Lesser.
Granby is going to get up to 16 miles of new sidewalks, and guess what? Granby's responsible for clearing them.
Participants discussed the challenges facing their respective towns, from the impacts of opioid addiction to affordable housing to Proposition 2.5. You can watch extended excerpts from the event on demand at ELCAT 01028.
Has to figure out how to get their buildings robust enough to educate kids.
Last Friday was the close of Spirit Week at the high school, which means the annual pep rally. Hosted as always by John Martin, this year's theme was Good Vibes Only, and based on the enthusiastic crowd in the auditorium, it seems to live up to its name.
No pushing. Get way up here. Hit the music. Look at Ezra go. Still a cheer, there's still a cheer, there's still a cheer. There's still a drum missile playing. See you later. Pop up, keep walking. Do you remember? Jim Gibson!
In another celebration this past weekend, the East Longmeadow Rotary Club hosted its EL Together Fall Festival at the center of town. Vendors, games, and activities for the kids, performances, and of course the Great Pumpkin Patch made for a beautiful fall day outing. Here are some highlights. On Wednesday, students in the choral music department at the high school welcomed parents and friends to another acoustic cafe, a casual evening of music performances by vocal ensembles, duets, and individual student performers. Here are some of the highlights from that event.
Great clouds roll over the hills, bringing darkness from above.
Okay, look, the test, I didn't ace it, even though it was just the basics. However, I'm too busy, so I have to get back to the office. And then I bump into my love. She's kind of hurt. She tells me that she just got fired at work. She was sending a message. She asks if I read it. I snap at her, tell her I'll be back in 2 minutes. And I walk in. I talk to Martin. I finish my plan. And I walk out. And I see my girl hand in hand with another man. I can't help falling in love with you.
For me it happens all the time. It's 1:15. I'm all alone and I need you now. Said I wouldn't come, but I lost all control and I need you now. And I don't know how I can do without. I just need you now. And I am feeling good. Feeling
This winter is shaping up to be one of the coldest in years, and with lower temperatures come higher electric bills. Here are some tips from National Grid to decrease your energy bills. This winter, our weather is projected to be 33% colder than the average across the rest of Massachusetts, and your heating system works much harder in colder weather even without raising the thermostat. Heating accounts for approximately 56% of yearly energy use for a typical household in this area. Here are some tips from National Grid to decrease your energy bill. Lower your thermostat while you're asleep or away. A 6 to 9 degree adjustment can save up to 10% off your bill. Drop the temperature on your water heater. Set it to 120 degrees to save energy and prevent burns. Clear areas in front of vents from furniture and drapes. Blocked vents require up to 25% more energy to distribute air. Caulk and add weather stripping around windows and doors. The edges of doors are often poorly sealed, allowing cold air to seep into your home. If you can't install weather stripping right away, you can temporarily block cold air drafts with rolled up towels. Finally, remember to change the filter on your heating system regularly. This will increase airflow and energy efficiency. These simple and inexpensive actions will ensure maximum savings throughout the winter. Residents can stop by the high school on Saturday, November 3rd from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. for a community shredding event. Prevent security theft by securely shredding confidential materials such as bank statements, legal agreements, and personal statements. Bring your documents to the health department's free shredding event to be shredded and recycled. For residents only, and limit 2 boxes per person. We leave you with a look at this year's Christmas tree at the center of town being set up for the soon approaching holiday. Arbor Tech workers spent hours setting up more than 2,000 LED lights for the town at no charge, which was no easy task on the colossal tree in front of the First Congregational Church. The current LED lights are extremely energy efficient and consume up to 90% less power than the bulbs used in past years. And at the end of the day, a generator was brought to the scene to test the results of their hard work and to give passerby an unexpected peek at how bright the holiday season will be in EL. This holiday tradition is presented by the East Longmeadow Lions Club. That's it for this week's edition of ELCAT News. I'm your host, Jen Carlos. Thanks for watching and see you next time.